And now I do the wah wah. Hey everyone, how you doing? A little bit early. It's because I got to leave a little bit early. Got an appointment later on here, but hey, wanted to make sure that we got a chance to say hello, everyone. So we just invoke favor upon you, all of you who are here. Thank you for joining. Nina the Miski, hello from Canada. So good to see everyone. We just ask that nothing missing, nothing be broken in your life. Yeah. So how y'all doing? It's Friday, and actually it looks like it's snowing in the mountains. I can see it coming right off the top of the mountains right before we went live. So anyway, happy birthday to those of you who are having one, and anniversaries. Listen, that's the things that make life so interesting. So let's see. Yeah, beach Al. Yeah, I got here really early. So we're doing some time traveling. So hey, everyone. Thank you, all the moderators. Y'all are just the best. And hey, listen, all the rest of you, y'all are pretty groovy too. I mean, that's all I got to say. It's a fact. And hello, Deb. How are you doing? Hello, Maria. Good to see you. And Casey and Susan and Susie and Paul and Gary and man, David and Twisted Isby. Hello. Got your email. We'll get to that. Universal One. Hello. How are you doing? Inman, good to see you. Think agape love for always and forever. Peace. Carol, hello. And Charlotte. Eric, how are you, my friend? So good to see you. Yeah, it's one of those interesting days. Odd energy today. It's just don't know quite. Well, sometimes there's days like that. What can you say? So, all this week we've been focusing in on our thoughts. And, we've known this, all of us have known this, that our thoughts take on life. It's just the way it is. We sometimes get, I don't know, mystified, wide-eyed of when we start hearing things like, well, you mean your thoughts can actually take form? Yeah, we've known that. We do it all the time. It's amazing. It's only when we put it in different perspectives that we have a problem processing it. Going, well, what? But it's true. And one of the things that we have found is our thoughts. Again, where do our thoughts originate from? I ask that question all the time. I never see people on it answering it. Good reason. Where do our thoughts originate from? Where is the center of our thoughts? How are our thoughts actually brought forth? I mean, I meditate at times, and there's times when I'm just floating, and you get, I don't know, what's the word I'm trying to think? It's like I'm almost touching the ethereal, the ether. I mean, thought. Is it up here? Is it in here? Is it here? Actually, I think it's everywhere. I contend that the very cells that we shed off, because they carry our DNA, still carry our thoughts. And who knows, maybe there is a day where we will find that a simple cell from a person will be able to contain all of their memories at that point, and when that cell was still actively involved with the collective. Think about that. But thoughts, I mean, anyone who begins to try to do quiet mind exercises become very frustrated within 10 seconds because it's very difficult to, I don't know, try to stop your thoughts right now. just close your eyes and try to think of one thing. What we've learned from the author here, from John Kreiter, is that, that they're everywhere. It's amazing when you think of what we're capable of doing. Sending off thoughts, how many per second? Who knows? The fact that we can even have multiple thoughts on top of thoughts, and many thoughts simply go to the oblivion. You can't recall them. You know you had that thought, but can't recall that thought. Who knows? Maybe they're waiting for a lifeline, right? So I thought we'd have a little fun on Friday. That we would kind of talk about thoughts. I was thinking about this morning. And isn't it true that thoughts are truly like cats? When you try to do quiet mind exercises, you begin to find out that it's not that easy corralling your thoughts. It's like you get one here and there's another one that shows up. I mean, when you really think about it, trying to get your thoughts organized sometimes is like, again, trying to keep kittens in one spot. You can't do it. It's almost impossible. But yet, we also find that there are some thoughts that don't act right. I mean, it's like cats in water. Well, wait a minute. That ain't supposed to be happening, but yet they do. And then we find those random thoughts, those thoughts that, what the hell, where did that come from? And just out of and the thing about it is sometimes it isn't a single thought. I mean, they're coming out of everywhere. Yeah, just like cats. Now, there are some thoughts that are just too cool. I get them all the time. They're just like, I kind of got the groove before you even make the move, And it is true. There's just some thoughts that are just too cool. Think about all the great things that we have around us today because someone had that very cool thought. And then there's the badass thoughts. You know what? You just know there's those times when, I think as people get older, they forget that sometimes, folks, we're still badasses. We are. You're a badass. And, and sometimes you just have badass thoughts, not necessarily what you would call evil, but they're just, they're just badass, man. There ain't no doubt about it. And then there are just some thoughts that just simply freaking run away. I mean, you got them all in line and then something comes out. And I mean, what the hell happens here? And then you just ruin your whole section. Thoughts are just like cats. Cats are just unique creatures. And I thought that is probably the perfect metaphor for us in recognizing thoughts, baby. I hope y'all love that, I still like the badass thought. I tell you what, I was laughing so hard, I was crying almost when I was doing those graphs. And it's funny because, I think sometimes if we would just look at ourselves like we used to do in our youth, we're badass. And, ain't no funky spirit that stinks going to be coming around my badass thoughts because I'm just too cool for school at times. And so are you. And, if you take that attitude with a spirit that's giving you a hard time, it's going to split, man, because it ain't going to dig the scene. It isn't going to be able to handle it. Probably doesn't know what the hell you're talking about, but that's all right too. So I just want you to have, I'm reading some of the thoughts here. I mean, yeah, you got to laugh, folks. Come on, man. And cats are definitely way too cool. So there we go. Ophelia says, I know my thoughts kick ass. There you go. That's exactly what you have to have. Because, folks, if you don't, there's enough energy already existing in your world and in the world itself that will bring you down, baby. I mean, you got friends sometimes, you don't know why you call them friends, because they just seem to bring your ass down. It's like, why am I even having you around? And so if you take that absence, like you're one badass, you put the rest of it however you want. You go into the spirit realm with that attitude. Now, I'm going to tell you what, you may face another badass, but at least you both know you're badasses, right? So, so let's finish up with our book. We are just about there, and this is going to be, I think, really kind of the crescendo, icing on the cake, the cherry, on top. This is where we start beginning to figure out how to deal with these thought forms. All right, so dangerous thought forms and how to deal with them. As I have mentioned, the reason why I'm putting together this manuscript is to answer the many questions that my readers have had about creating and using servitors. While most are interested in creating their own servitor and have questions in this area, there are also many that are interested in dealing with unpleasant thought forms that have been created to vex them personally or that they have accidentally stumbled upon. I even have one reader, for example, who had to deal with a thought form that was originally created for positive ends, but then developed into a very negative thought form as the creator began to experience a number of deeply emotional events in her life. It is good to begin this chapter then by stating the obvious. There are not just positive thought forms like the ones that I'm hoping you will create using the information in this book. There are many other negative thought forms that are created by accident or on purpose, and these negative thought forms can cause havoc in the lives of many people. There's many gardeners here. I'm a gardener. There's lots of us. We know what happens. We spend all the freaking time turning the soil over, weeding it out. We get the flower bed made and, we plant the seeds, and, it's going to take a while before that plant or flower comes up. But you know what will come up? Yeah, weeds. Those are the negative thoughts, folks. That's exactly what they are. And they come to fruition much, much faster than positive. I found that to be true all of my life, and I don't know why. All right, there are some individuals who use similar techniques to the ones I described to create destructive thought forms, and why I don't know, that are meant to attack and hurt others. What the freak is your head? If your head is into hurting other people, man, you messed up. You are seriously messed up. And I hope that we don't have those type in here, because they're seriously messed up. This is very unfortunate. And there are some critics that have told me that describing these techniques to the general public is irresponsible. I personally don't think that that is the case. I know that the information that I'm writing down here is accessible to one degree or another through the internet and books. I know that the information that I provide makes little difference in stemming the actions of those who would create thought forms for negative intent. I do not think, though, that the information I provide can help many to understand what might be happening to them and can show them how to overcome these negative influences. The most prolific type of negative thought form that I've run into is not the consciously created one. It is actually what I could call the accidental thought form. These kind of thought forms are incredibly prevalent in our world, and they are basically caused by the accidental thoughts and intentions of others. Negative thoughts and desires that begin to pool into large conglomeration of negativity. I think that's what's happened. I mean, it's like people who move into a new house. It's like suddenly, I've heard stories, you don't do a cleansing and the energy will stay quiet until you get in. And I think that there are all around us dark pools of negative energy that literally float. And if you happen to touch one, and if one happens to settle in your vicinity, all hell seems to break loose. Think about it. The reason for this conglomeration is that thoughts have an electromagnetic quality that essentially makes them magnets. I believe that is so freaking profound, folks. If you write this down, think about this. That is, they have the ability to attract other thoughts that are similar to them, and as a result can create giant conglomerations of thought, sort of like a big straw. This is a highly complex action but one can generally think of it as like thoughts attracted to each other. And since no two thoughts can be exactly the same, the difference in these highly attractive thoughts allows for a type of mixing or development that changes the overall quality of the newly created gestalt. This is interesting when you think about this. I mean, we talk about transmuting energy, right? Negative into positive, etc. Well, if thought can give us that thought, then wouldn't that thought carry out with other thoughts? I mean, it's not like it's some kind of a exclusive secret code or anything. Don't know. These negative thought gestalts are very prevalent in areas where they have been a lot of tragedy and are often labeled as ghost or poltergeist. The less developed ones are often called echoes of paranormal investigators in that they tend to be thought forms that recreate terrible past events. These kind of thought form echoes are usually created by an incredibly negative event that had enough psychic energy to essentially stamp its impression on reality. We've known this. Murders, violent deaths, those that encounter sometimes tragically prolonged dying experiences. Yeah, I mean, and you think about it. Billions and billions and billions of people. And they ain't all singing Sunshine Baby. No, the vast majority are singing the blues. All right. All traumatic events and any emotional intensive experience causes a thought stamp like the one mentioned above, but not all such thought forms become apparent to people in a general sense. In order for a tragic event to become stamped on reality so that an average person can sense it requires a huge amount of psychic energy. This psychic energy is usually provided by highly intense emotions, quite possible negative ones, which supercharge the current event in the minds of those that are experiencing it. So, in reality, it is not the actual event that is stamped, but the mental images or thoughts of the event, as witnessed and experienced by highly emotional individuals. A terrible murder would be a good example of such an event. This, of course, does not mean that there has to be a passing witness in the area of such an event for it to become a thought form stamp. A mind, upon experiencing its own terrible suffering before death, can develop a psychic blast with enough intensity to do the job. Folks, that's one thing I hope I'm teaching this. We're all learning here. We've got to prepare for this event. And it's not to say that we can't have, party like it's 1999. But this is the time of preparation. My rational way of thinking about it is this way, folks. Where are you going to be longer? Here or there? Yeah, you already answered the question. And since it's going to be there, why wait to get there to try to figure out what's going on? There's enough information here to prepare a soul for the crossing to where it's not even noticeable. Think about that. All right, we continue. This supercharge event gives us an idea of the power that certain thought forms can attain. These thought forms, echoes, for example, are like sort of a rip or a rift in space and time, and can interweave into different time periods, both present and future. If they are powerful enough, they usually exist within the periphery of human perception, and are usually only experienced clearly by highly sensitive people, empaths. These echo events can also become noticeable when a person begins to resonate with a negative emotion that might be similar to the emotional frequency that created it. For example, a person experiencing intense fright in the general area of a negative echo event might be able to experience aspects of that past event. If these negative thought forms are powerful enough, then they can become mobile and can develop a type of intent. Usually, these more intentional thought forms are created when incredibly powerful negative experiences repeat themselves. If you're in an abusive relationship where you're being verbally abused, emotionally abused, physically abused, the more that cycles, you're caught. It will freaking destroy your inner image. Ladies, guys, don't be in those type of relationships. They're death. Run. No matter what your emotional attachment is, run. All right. Usually these more intentional thoughts forms are created when incredible, powerful negative experiences repeat themselves. This can sometimes happen in prisons, sanitariums, or perhaps even battlegrounds, or perhaps relationships. Another way that these negative intentional thought forms are created is through the negative attention of many individuals. For example, this might happen when people keep returning to an area where a negative stamp type thought form is present. Memorials are typically erected where death has occurred. Think about that. When people return to an area, let's say an old prison or a Civil War battleground, with the intention of experiencing this negative stamp, they tend to project a lot of fear and attention into the area. So they're bringing this energy, and this is like candy. I mean, it's heroin to a heroin addict. Spirits. So they bring this with them. The human mind is incredibly powerful, and it naturally creates thoughts that can develop what we would consider form, which happens whenever a person focuses his or her attention on something with great concentration or emotion. It is usually paranormal investigators then, or the curious, that are sometimes responsible for augmenting negative thought forms and developing the nature of these thought forms so that over time they become imbued with the ability to interact with what we would consider the real world. Now think about this in another way. Think about your first puppy love. How much attention did you focus in on that? I mean, You ladies, you already had wedding, in your mind. You had your children. It was all set out. It's the same thing. That's powerful. You think about it. An example of how an accidental thought form can affect innocent individual goes something like this. There is a certain house that had something tragic happen here. This house was perhaps the site of a horrible murder, and as a result of the incredibly powerful emotional output of those that were involved in the incident, a thought form is created that becomes a sort of stamp or recording of that terrible event. Also, as a result of the tragic events, this house becomes infamous within the area, and it draws the attention and the fascination of people around it. The curious are drawn to the area and also begin to develop and reinforce the almost mystic quality of the tragedy. Lizzie Borden, a tragedy which is also responsible for creating a thought form stamp or echo. This negative attention develops this negative echo even further, so that this negative echo develops a form. What once was a blurred and shadowy echo event, experienced by a few sensitive empaths individuals, becomes a more defined event that changes in order to suit the legend evolving around it. Very soon, even physically non-sensitive individuals begin to experience strange sensual phenomena in the house. They might begin to hear sounds or see images, and perhaps even feel an ethereal touch. Some might even experience a push or a scratch. As the legend grows, more people are drawn into the area. Even paranormal investigators are drawn into these vortexes. They begin to explore the legend and try and verify facts. All this focuses more attention and emotion into the area until the thought form grows from a static thing to a more developed entity that can begin to move around. People have essentially created a negative type of servitor that begins to express an intent. This intent being a conglomeration of a true event and the legend that has grown around it. Kind of like, the whole crucifying some dude on a cross thing. No evidence of it, but it's as real as though it did happen. Why? Billions of people over thousands of years have reinforced it into an actual living thought form. It never happened, doesn't matter. The evidence would say that it is alive and that the event did happen. Along comes a family that is perhaps largely unaware of the negative thought form within and purchase the house. Because this enlarged thought form now has the power of form, or we could say a presence, the new owners of the house begin to experience strange phenomena. It is quite possible that one of the members of the house, perhaps one of the younger members, with stronger emotions, an empath, an intuitive, and a more vivid imagination, begins to identify directly with this thought form. This kind of thought form has been captured in a number of paranormal videos and other recordings which have become famous in the age of paranormal investigators. Certainly, this is not the only type of haunting out there, and I do not mean to propose that thought forms are only basis for hauntings. The haunting phenomenon is very complex, and this is just one of the many ways that it can develop. But whatever the case may be, whether it is intentionally created negative thought form or that it is put together in order to attack or bring misery upon another person, or whether it is largely accidental phenomenon like the one mentioned above, These thought forms can be quite problematic for some, and as a result, there is much interest in the ways to get rid of them. A number of individuals have asked for my advice on how best to get rid of these potentially dangerous thought forms. My advice usually begins with reinforcing the idea that we are the ones in control. As human beings, we can manipulate and control energy, while thought forms are dependent on us to give them power. It is therefore within our means to be able to get rid of any negative thought forms that might accost us. In order to do this, I usually advise people to watch shows like he mentioned before, Dog Whisperer, or to do anything they can in order to develop a more dominant attitude. Badass. Badass. You are a badass. Anyway, quite often, people tend to run in panic whenever they experience any kind of supernatural event, and as a result, find it very difficult to take on a strong stance against negative thought forms. While it is understandable that most will panic when they experience something within the realm of the unknown, I do hope that over time they become desensitized to these events as they keep happening to them and are eventually able to experience the paranormal event with a little more composure. To do this, they have to train themselves so that they no longer go into flight mode and instead attain a fight mentality. Folks, you write me letters. Many of you are asking me for advice. You are having a problem. This is your answer. The answer begins within you, my friend. If you go into a situation where you're afraid, hang it up. You need to go back into basic training. I love the aspect of what he says here about desensitizing. If you're afraid of the dark, my advice to you is to find the darkest room that you can and have a person lock the door with you in it. You're either going to figure it out or you just might as well hang it up, because you're going to be that way over in the afterlife. I've never met a spirit that could defeat me. Never met a spirit that could lay a hand on me. They can't do you either. All right. The fear experienced as these negative paranormal events are taking place must be turned into anger. Get pissed off. That's how I learned. They vanish. Literally vanish. When they find out that you're fighting mad, I haven't met one spirit. They're all cowards. All of them. Yahweh, Moloch, Allah. Yeah. They won't face you. They can't. Ideally into a highly focused form of positive energy that can then be used to disperse a negative thought form. The key component to do this is intent, and the definition of intent is the ability to believe, truly believe, in whatever you are commanding. Since the main focus of my article and of this manuscript is the creation and employment of servitors, I usually recommend that people fight fire with fire. What I mean by this is that I tell people to create a servitor that will either disperse and destroy the negative thought form, or at the very least, drive it away. In order to do this, you need to use the same 3 steps that I outlined earlier in this manuscript. And I have that if you want that. Just let me know. Here it is. You must create a design of a servitor that you think can get rid of this negative thought form. In anything. Your thought form can be a sigil that actually lives. You must charge your servitor until you feel confident in its ability to overcome the negative thought form. You must send your servitor into the fray so that it can destroy the negativity that now besets you. When you send your servitor into the fray, you should be able to see it or feel it move into the area where you feel the most negative energy. To do this, you intend it to go there. Again, by intending it, I mean that you believe with every ounce of your being that your servitor is now moving away from you and engaging in this other negative thought form in battle. You control your servitor through intent. You develop your intent through controlled belief. If your servitor goes out, but you feel that it has not been able to accomplish its task, that it has not been able to vanquish the negative thought form, then you need to do is to recharge your servitor until it is even more solid and more powerful. You then need to send it forth to do battle again. This continues until you win. Remember, this is not 3 strikes and you're out, baby. No. You continue until you win, no matter how many times you strike out. I think we've got the cavalry helicopter squad above us. Yeah, it is. That sounds like a Black Hawk. Anyway, can y'all hear that? Sounds like it's right over my house. I think it is over my house. All right. You do this until you win, because your servitor will be gaining more and more power. And from the more that you charge it, eventually this servitor that you have created should be able to overcome just about any negative thought form you encounter. So I hope that this has helped. I mean, we've learned something here today, folks. And serious, the cats were the perfect metaphor. We got to come into this situation not feeling that we're victim. We have enough already as human beings going against us. Folks, we can't even figure out where we came from. We have no idea. We're told to believe in gods that have never manifested. No God has ever manifested to a man. No God has ever manifested to humanity. And if they did, they were aliens and they left, because nothing's been around here, baby. And that's just the point. We are barraged with this. We're told that we're not good enough, that, those of us who have psychic abilities, those of us are empaths, intuitives, all of our lives we've suffered in this thing called reality because of what we've been taught. Well, I say screw those who've taught this. I challenge them. They're frauds. They have nothing to be able to substantiate any of these beliefs upon. That the one thing that is, in fact, tangible is the fact we know we have thoughts. And thoughts, folks, become reality. Children, we're all the result of a thought. So, yeah. This is how when depression begins to oppress you, when you feel that there's something that's pulling down on you, you can't give into it like you've done in the past. Praying isn't going to help. Never has. What are you praying to, or what? If you think about you're asking for a prayer to come to pass, think about the billions of odds, things that have to be changed so your one event can happen to you, where it's actually your thought. You brought it to pass. And that's what we're learning here. You can't allow yourself to even get seduced into beginning to feel the oppression, depression. You've got to get mad. You've got to be a warrior in your inner self. How dare something that's beneath you try to in any way attack you, attached itself to you, in any way try to seduce you into oppression, depression. No. Give them this. That's what I do. I tell them to go coitus themselves. And you know, when you become that type of spirit, that type of soul, you're marked. You're going on the other side. And I'll tell you, you learn to be a warrior here, you will be a warrior over there. You won't be like the vast majority of people that cross over who are afraid, who simply just go with the flow. No, you're going to be able to say, wait a minute, stop, wait a minute. All right, so this pulls on me. It's warm, it feels great, but wait a minute. What is this going on here? See what happens. You see, I never hear a story. Yeah, I have, that those that feel that pull, it's when they question it that something reverses back. I don't know. We got enough time to discover. We're going to find out. We'll be reading more. So there you go, Rosanna. That's it. That's it. Hey, Peter, I think you're absolutely right. I think many of these servitors that we are reading as gods, again, what, is God a Christian? Is God a white dude? Is God a dude? I mean, come on. And if man sinned, which genus of man sinned? I mean, was Adam a sapien? Was Adam a Cro-Magna? Was there even an Adam? Why do we buy into this, Oh, we read the books, the Sumerian tablets. Oh, there's Enki and Enlil. They're just freaking words. No evidence of these creatures. No evidence of their existence at all, other than just written on words, on a piece of paper, a tablet. But we get suckered into it. And then when you take on the attitude of a warrior, that you're not going to be buffeted by these assholes, spirits. I mean, some of them are just pricks. And when you start fighting back, even if you can't see it, it's seen. Oh, it's seen. There is a light that begins to emanate from these people that of myself. I'll fight you. I'll fight you all the way down to the last thing, but I'll love you at the same time. Speak favor over you. I won't be a victim. A victor, yes. A victim, no. And you begin to emanate a light. And it's seen in the ether, in the spiritual realm. You couldn't put someone like myself in the midst of a lot of people who have been led by a theology that they're so attached to it. My presence would repel that. And that's what you have to become. Well, Inman, I think you have to be a little bit more accepting. I understand where you're coming from it, but listen, it's an imaginary being, if a being at all. That's the problem with humanity. We think that there is an actual God that isn't a personification of a form, of a thought. That's why there's thousands of religions. I'm speaking to you, Eamon, directly. So whatever your God is, that's cool. There's some of us who say, ain't no white dude sitting on some throne, telling this one's going to go to everlasting hell and this one's going to go to everlasting happiness. No. Doesn't work that way. Never has, never will. Okay. Sometimes you just have to allow it to be. The creative force No, I think the writers of Star Wars had it. Let the Force be with you. And I know. I get into some of these things, and I know it gets some people just, they get riled up, but it's all right. We do it in love. And let's see, can you have your servitor follow you? You know what, Darth? It's interesting that you mentioned that. I think yes. Listen, I think if you're the quality of individual, that thoughts, you think about it, the reason why many people can't attract money is because money's not attracted to them. They're not attractive to money. Now, hear me out. I'm making this in a very narrow point. When you start making yourself desirable, then things are going to be attracted to you. And if you're a desirable individual that just has life just flowing out of you, you're naturally upbeat, you have a positivity about yourself, what happens to those most of those people will attract that. Now, if they are unaware of how to defend themselves, they also become victims. But that's what we do here. We change victims to victors. I think I'm going to make that a t-shirt. I swear I am. We are not victims. We are victors. And that's how I look at it. All right, folks. Well, I'm off to an appointment later on, and hope you have the best of the strong end of the week here and the rest of the day. This is good stuff. I really, you shouldn't ever be afraid. Now, if you go into a public situation where there is evil intent, I've heard stories, we all have, where people were supposed to be somewhere that a tragedy took place, but they sensed something. Why is that? Why is it that the rest did not know that? I asked the question yesterday, and my good friend Renee and I were exchanging an email. The question I asked every one of you, stop and ask yourself, how is it that we cannot have power, effect into the spirit realm, but yet the spirits that are already passed over into the ethereal realm can come back into this realm and impact us, impact situations? You see, something's wrong here. The door can't swing but just one way. No. If they're feeding off of us, if they need us, then that means it can only lead to one conclusion. We are as powerful, if not more powerful. Do you think that a shaman, a wizard, a witch, a warlock crosses over to the other side and that knowledge just poof, no longer? Think about this, folks. They become versed to the other side. It's what made them so powerful here. And they are powerful over there. And that's what I hope all of us are going to do. Okay. Thank you, Susie Q. Love you, darling. Boom, knowledge. Yes, there we go. Gotta love it. KT, good to see you, hon. Diana, hello. So, hey, Cosmic Convergence, how are you doing? Good to see you, my friend. Victor, good to see you. And Power Rex, yes. You've mentioned that the high can come low, but the low isn't high enough to go up. Well, I think it can. There was a time in my life where depression was overwhelming. I had a rope around my neck, folks. I was literally that close, But something happened. And I can tell you that's as low as a person can go. So, Rex, all I'm telling you, there is no low that cannot be reversed. That's why perfection is always an elusive goal. That's why there's no God that's perfect. I've explained that to you. If God is perfect, then God has no purpose for life. for living. Think about it. Well, thank you, Viola. That's very kind. But folks, when I talk, I'm not bullshitting you. You know, I walk the talk. Yeah, I am. It wasn't a very proud time in my life, but I know what that is. I've been there. I've looked into the abyss. And you know what? There's not a need for one person to ever to go into the abyss. Think about that. So, all right, folks, much love to you. Have yourself a fabulous strong end. And I'll see you back here on Monday. Probably see you over on Jeff's channel, The Christian Whistleblower, on Sunday. And in the interim, love yourself. That's the best thing you can do. If you're in love, the more you love yourself, the more in love you will be with others. We're not talking narcissistic. We're not talking in the ego type of way. It's kind of almost like a complete surrender. And it's like with Miss Trina, that's where the molecules begin to change. All right, folks. Thank you. And we'll see you later. All right. Bye-bye.